Hey, it's Dave with House Flipping Spreadsheet, and this is a case study on how I analyzed my very first flip deal using the House Flipping Spreadsheet. Now, in this case study, I'm going to run through a quick analysis using our free House Flipping Spreadsheet Lite version, and I'm just going to walk you through the basics of analyzing a deal and how you can calculate the maximum purchase price that you should offer for a property. So let's start by giving you some background information on the property and my very first deal. So this property was a property that I found on the MLS way back in 2011, and back then there was still a lot of foreclosure inventory, so you could still find some pretty good deals on the MLS. So this property was listed for $54,900, and rehabbed properties in the area were selling for around $125,000 after repairs. So I thought if I could buy this property maybe for around $50,000, I could probably net around $20,000 in profit in the deal. So here's a few pictures of the property. The structure itself was fine, and by fine I mean there were no major foundation issues or anything like that, but it did need a new roof, new windows and doors, and exterior painting and some new landscaping. In the interior of the property was pretty dirty and there were some holes in the walls, but for the most part, the property was just needing a cosmetic rehab. So we were going to be building out some new bathrooms, painting the interiors, installing new hardwood flooring in the kitchen, and installing new carpet in the bedrooms and new light fixtures throughout the property. So that's a quick overview of the scope of work of the property. Now let's start plugging in some numbers into our calculator to see how much we should offer for the property. So I have our Rehab Analyzer tool open, which is used to calculate the maximum purchase price that you should offer for the property. Now, in order to calculate the maximum purchase price, the Rehab Analyzer takes the after repair value, which is the amount you think you can resell the property for after the repairs, and subtracts all of your project costs. So your buying costs, your holding costs, your selling costs, your financing costs, and your repair costs, and your desired profit to calculate your maximum purchase price. So the very first step is to input the after repair value, which again is the amount we think we can resell the property for after we make the repairs to the property. So as I mentioned before, remodeled properties in this neighborhood are selling for around $125,000 up to $135,000 at this time. So I'm going to be conservative and I'm just going to input $125,000 as my after repair value. The next step is to set up your fixed costs, which are your buying costs, your holding costs, selling costs, and your financing costs. You have two different options for setting up your fixed costs. You can use the detailed method and break down each item on the list for your buying costs, holding costs, selling costs, and financing costs, or you can quickly calculate an amount using the percentage of the after repair value. The percentage of the after repair value method allows you to quickly calculate your fixed costs based upon a percentage of the ARV. You have probably heard of a quick rule of thumb called the 70% rule, which states you need to buy a property at 70% of the after repair value minus the repairs. Now, if you want to use the 70% rule, you can simply plug in 15% for your fixed costs and 15% for your desired profit, which will be right at 70% of the after repair value. Now, generally, when I'm first analyzing a deal, I'll use the 70% rule to quickly determine the property value, and then I'll go back and I'll do a detailed analysis of all of the fixed costs on the project. So for this case study, let's do a detailed analysis to help you with this calculation process. So for the first item on the list, it's our buying costs, which are typically going to have around 1 to 3% of the purchase price in buying cost expenses such as your inspection costs and miscellaneous transfer fees and stuff like that. Now, holding costs are calculated by taking your holding duration and multiplying it by a monthly rate. So a typical rehab will likely take around 2 to 3 months to actually rehab and fix up the property, and then another 1 to 2 months to get the property resold. So let's plug in 2 months for the rehab, and then we'll plug in 2 months for the resale time frame, which is a total of 4 months for our holding duration. Now we just need to enter our monthly holding costs for property taxes, utilities, and insurance. Property taxes can be found on our local tax assessor website. Utilities are typically going to be around $200 to $300 per month, which is for the water, the electrical, and the gas bill. And insurance is typically about 0.5% to 1% of the property value per year. So on this property that's worth $125,000, I would expect insurance to be around $1,250 a year, which is $100 per month. Now for selling costs, your biggest expense will be the commissions you pay the real estate agent. Generally, as a seller, you'll have to pay both the buyer's agent's commission and your seller's agent's commission, which is typically 3% each. So in total, that's going to be 6% commission on the resale value. Then you may end up paying 1 to 2% in other miscellaneous costs such as home warranties, transfer taxes, etc. Overall, you should expect to pay around 6 to 8% in the ARV for your selling costs. Now, if you're going to be financing the purchase, you'll want to set up your financing costs by clicking the Financing Setup button. There you'll have options to use a loan or set up an equity partnership to fund your deal. This deal was an all-cash deal, so we don't need to set anything up for our financing costs. Now you'll notice at the bottom we have a total fixed cost amount of $11,660, which is 9.3% of the after repair value. Now remember, the 70% rule suggests that we use 15% of the ARV for our fixed costs. So our 9.3% is significantly less than what's recommended. But because we're not financing this deal and have no financing costs in our deal, we're able to offer more money for this property. So that's why it's important to perform a detailed analysis of all of your costs, especially in a competitive market like today, to really figure out the exact value that you can offer for your property. The 70% rule is good for quickly analyzing the deal up front, but you should really perform a detailed analysis of all of the fixed costs before you make an offer. Our next step is the repair costs. So we have a couple different options for estimating repairs. You can use the detailed option, which pulls the detailed estimate data from our repair cost estimator, or you can use QuickBid to quickly input values per each category, or you can just simply input one lump sum value. Now for this case study, I'm just going to input a lump sum value of $40,000, but in another case study video, I'm going to walk you through how to create a detailed estimate for our rehab projects. So now we've entered all of the project costs, but we need to think about how much profit we want to make on this deal. Now generally, I try to shoot for around 15% of the after repair value, which on this deal is around $18,000. But at a minimum, I want to make $20,000 in profit, so you can also just manually plug in $20,000 directly in the cell. Okay, so now that we've entered all of our project costs and our desired profit, the calculator calculates the recommended maximum purchase price by taking the after repair value of $125,000 and subtracting out our fixed costs of $11,660, our repair costs of $40,000, and our desired profit of $20,000 to calculate our maximum purchase price at $53,340, which is 75% of the after repair value. Now on this first deal, I believe we started negotiations at $52,000 and we ended up getting the property under contract for $53,500. So one last thing I'll show you is you can actually switch around the calculation based upon a known purchase price. So let's change our known purchase price to $53,000 and see what our calculated profit is in the deal. So based upon a known purchase price of $53,500, looks like we're going to make around $19,840 in this deal. So that's a quick overview of how you can analyze a house flipping deal using the house flipping spreadsheet. In my next case study, I'll walk you through how to create a detailed repair estimate using our repair estimator tool. Now it turns out my budget of $40,000 for the repairs was a little too low in my initial deal analysis, so I'll show you where I went wrong and how to cover yourself to prevent my mistakes. If you have any questions, please let me know.